Hello, I'm Andrew Marshall, and I'd like to tell you about a technique that's going to really revolutionise the way that you and your partner communicate. It's called reflective listening. So, what does it involve, and why do I suggest it to people? It actually deals with something that is incredibly important for relationships, and that's communication. And it deals with the three things that stops good communication. So what do you think these three things are that stop good communication? Let me tell you about them. Reflective listening is going to stop you from interrupting each other, and that is incredibly important because it builds up tension between the two of you and it stops you from listening properly. Now, the other problem that stops people from listening properly is what I call busy preparing your defence. So while your partner is complaining, for example, that you haven't cleaned out the loft, you're coming up with the 7 reasons why you haven't done it. So you're not actually really listening, you're too busy preparing your defence. And the third thing that makes communication really difficult between couples is what I call chunking. So what's chunking? Well, it's you give a big chunk of information to your partner. It's those 71 reasons why you haven't got time to clear out the loft. And there's in fact so much information there that your partner doesn't know what to react to. They probably don't remember any of those 71 reasons. So this is designed to stop those three things. It's to stop you chunking, it's to stop you from not properly listening because you're preparing your defence, and it stops interrupting. Now, to start off with, this is going to seem very artificial and very difficult, but it allows you to talk about really difficult subjects. So it's really worth the while investing time and learning how to do this. Don't worry, I'm going to give you an example and we're going to do a role play. I've got one of my colleagues to help me. So, in the reflective listening, there are 2 roles for you to do. There is the speaker and the receiver. Let's start with the speaker. Now the speaker is going to communicate some information that's important to them. Now remember, we've got to stop chunking. What I try and get people to do is communicate 1 or 2 or maybe just 3 pieces of information as they communicate. Once you get past that, you'll discover it's impossible to remember everything that you've said. And if you're dealing with a difficult subject, that makes it even harder for people to remember everything. So the speaker can communicate, obviously for as long as they like because there's no interrupting, but please not for too long. Don't chunk 1 or 2 pieces of information. The receiver at this point is listening, and they summarise the 3 key points that you made, or the 2 points that you made. And afterwards they say, is this right? Don't worry if you're repeating back what your partner says. That is really useful because using the same words they're using really makes them feel heard. So you repeat back what you have heard and then you say, is that right? At that point, the person who has done the communicating, the speaker, has got 2 options. They either say no or yes. If it is no, actually you got point 1 and 2 right, but you missed something that was really important to me, they can then communicate that back. And you then summarise, and you would say, I mentioned A and B, but I forgot to mention C. Is that right? At this point, they would say yes. We come to the 3 most powerful words of this whole exercise, and I might be exaggerating a bit, but this could really change your relationship. Because it says, is there more? And lots of times in our relationship, we're frightened that our partner doesn't want to hear unpleasant things. They don't want to hear more. And that's why we chunk and we try and get all the information over in one go. But if you use these 3 little words, it really makes a huge difference. So, is there more? And if the answer is yes, we go back round to the top again, we summarise. When the person has finished summarising, they say, is that right? Yes. Is there more? And we keep going until you say no, and then we swap over. And then it becomes the receiver's turn to speak, and the speaker then starts to receive. Now in a moment, Annette, who's one of my team, is going to do a role play with me. We're going to pretend that we've got an issue between the two of us and we're going to communicate in this format. Now you'll notice something that's really important in this, and that's what to do if you get a question, because the communicator might actually communicate something that comes across the question. I'd really like to know why you dislike my mother. Now the temptation then, if you're in this role, is to answer that question, but you can't because you're summarising. So what you would summarise is, you're really interested in knowing why I dislike your mother. Is that right? And they would say yes, and you still use the same format where you say, is there more? And obviously the answer will most probably be yes. And in this case, it might be, I want to know why you dislike my mother because it's causing a lot of friction between me and my mother. And then you'd come back again and you'd say, you'd like to know why I dislike your mother because it's causing tension between you and her. Is that right? Yes. Is there more? No. And at that point you swap over and you can answer the question. But it really makes certain that you have understood the question before you start answering it. I know it seems difficult, but when you see it in action, it will look much better. So, let's see how reflective listening looks in action.
So there's something I'd like to talk to you about, Andrew, and it's about clearing out the loft, really, and about your attitude and approach to it, which is different to mine.
So what you're saying is you'd like to talk about clearing out the loft because you are uncertain about my attitude to it, and you think your attitude is going to be different from my attitude. Is that right?
Yes, that is right. Yeah, that's exactly it.
Is there more?
Yeah, there is, because I'm a bit confused. You seem to wait until I've done it all, and then you show interest. And I don't know whether you just think it's my job or it's a girl's piece of work or...
So what you're saying is that you work in the loft, I don't show any interest until a later stage, and you wonder if I'm interested, whether I think it's your job to do that. Is that right?
Yeah, that is right.
Is there more?
Yeah, I mean, I think I feel so frustrated and angry sometimes. I feel quite overwhelmed with the amount I've got to do, and I find it hard to ask you for help.
So you feel overwhelmed, you're angry sometimes about the fact that you feel overwhelmed, and you find it difficult to ask for me for help. Have I got that right?
No. The one thing that's missing there is the frustration.
So what I missed was that often you get frustrated about the fact that I'm still downstairs.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yes, that is right. Yes, that is right.
Is there more?
Yeah, there is. I suppose I want to understand what your thinking is about it. You never say spontaneously. I always feel I don't know you that way.
So what you're saying is you'd like to know why I'm downstairs because you feel you don't know me properly. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I know you, but I don't know your view about clearing out the loft.
So what you're saying is you don't know my view of clearing out the loft. Is that right?
Yes.
Is there more?
No, that's probably it.
So at this point, we swap over and I've got a chance to respond and actually answer that question. So let's go back into the exercise again.
Okay.
So let me talk about how I feel about the loft. If I'm being entirely honest, I hate clearing out the loft. I can think of nothing in this whole world I'd like to do less than clear out that loft. In fact, as far as I'm concerned, all that stuff can step into the loft until the day I die.
Wow. So, you're saying you just there's nothing worse for you than clearing out the loft, and that it could stay up there, as far as you're concerned, until you die. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, and is there more?
So I suppose I'm thinking, on one hand, I'm very grateful for you clearing out the loft, but actually I have some very complicated feelings about the loft being cleared out.
Okay, so on one hand, you're really pleased I'm doing it, clearing out the loft for us, but there's some real complex feelings going on as well. Is that right?
Yes.
And so is there more?
Yes, let me try and explain those complex feelings, because I suppose there's things there I sort of don't want to throw away, but I don't really want to see again. It's a sort of a bizarre mixture, but that's how I feel about it.
Right. So you're torn because there's things you want to keep, even though you know you should throw them away, but there's things there that you don't want to look at again, even though you know you're going to want to throw them away, or maybe even keep. Is that right?
Not quite, because you're suggesting that I do want to throw them away. I'm more ambivalent about that whole idea.
Okay. So you're ambivalent about items in the loft, and you're not sure whether you want to throw them away or not. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
I think you can begin to see how important it is to slow down the communication. Otherwise, there can be some very small misunderstandings that get into the argument that actually can send you in completely different directions. And that's why this reflective listening is so powerful, because you actually know what it is you're arguing about. And often, possibly, you're not really having an argument at all. What you're doing is misunderstanding each other.